jail inside. You sold your own mind for a place to hide. Break your slave chains and cast them aside. Freedom's knocking at your door.
Hello there, I'm Madalyn O'Hare, back again with the American Atheist Forum.
And I'm John Murray, the president of American Atheists. We have with us a guest from Houston, Texas, Mr. Don Sanders, who is the chapter coordinator for American Atheists. On this program, we want to talk about something with which American Atheists has had some to do over the years, and that's the Boy Scouts. There have been a number of American Atheist magazines that have been devoted to the issue as we have gone back and forth with various both scouts and parents over the issue of the religiosity inherent in the Boy Scouts, and the fact that generally the Boy Scouts really don't want to have anything to do with boys who are atheists or come from atheist families, and that their official credo embraces a God and country type of thing. Also, they are one of the requirements for their highest level of scouting is what they call a God and country merit badge is one of the required merit badges for you to reach their highest level, their Eagle Scout level. And there have been problems with that with persons who were atheists or from atheist families who had become involved with the Scout program and found at some point that they couldn't go any further because they couldn't earn that particular merit badge. So there have been all kind of problems.
Oh, we've had big fights with
religion. That is being litigated in at least 2 states of the Union, in
Yes.
Illinois and California right now, with regard to that issue too. And also with regard to the fact that they are an organization which has been chartered by Congress along the way too. And we feel because of that, atheists feel because of that, that they should be more open with regard to atheists.
It's probably the most sacrosanct organization for youngsters in the United States, Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts.
Next to maybe something like the YMCA or YWCA.
Well, those people are older.
And those are older, and they were founded with a more decidedly religious taint to them from the beginning. They were founded to protect youth from going wayward in the big cities at the turn of the century. But the Boy Scout organization has always had God and church as one of its principal attributes. I would say that probably I wouldn't be remiss in stating that the vast majority of Boy Scout troops use churches of some denomination or the other church facilities to meet in or to use as their headquarters, and then from there go out on the most popular thing that everybody associates with Boy Scouts, which is their camping endeavors. So we were quite interested, having gone all kind of rounds with the Scouts and with the Boy Scouts, not the Girl Scouts. American Atheists or any atheist group really hasn't gone on any rounds with the Girl Scouts yet, but the Boy Scouts we have.
Well, we have one girl who's suing in order to get into the Boy Scouts.
Yes.
But I think that what we want to do tonight, which is so delightful, remember that no atheist may get into this organization. So we are going to report on a totally religious organization where everybody believes in God, right?
That's right.
And they have to say they believe in God and work to show they believe in God. And we would like to talk about this God-ridden organization that has cleansed itself of every atheist conceivable, right? Well, go with it.
Well, it came It's quite a wonderment to us, given this whole morality background of the Scouts, that it has recently come out that the Scouts are a harboring place for pedophilia, and that this is a great opportunity, a great, essentially gigantic meat market for people who like to molest little boys, to go and to find this great supermarket of young men or boys to exploit, and it's kind of a supermarket for that. As one person put it in some of the studies that have been going on, the volunteer organizations such as the Boy Scouts are just perfect for pedophiles, in the sense that they are just the ideal situation if they can get to a large number of kids to kind of check out which ones might be the easiest victims, end quote. And nobody, I think, had really thought of the Boy Scouts in this wise. I know we have done at least one program in this American Atheist Forum in the more than 10 years that it's been on the air, about priests in the United States and the pedophile priests and how that is rather rampant within the Roman Catholic Church. And one would suspect that taking grown, should-be sexually active men and telling them they can never have sex, something's got to give. But to have the boys in a, what we'll see in a minute, is a rather huge, both national and international organization, to be targets of molestation from something that holds itself out to be completely morally straight. Is that the phrase with the Scouts? I believe it is. In their Scout oath that they will be morally straight is one of the things.
Can we pepper this as you go along with some of these little things?
Yeah, the result of this is that, and let me give you some of the overall statistics first, which are that more than once a week for the past 2 decades, on the average, a Cub Scout, Boy Scout, or Explorer has reported being sexually abused by a Scout leader.
What's with that? Those are the ones that are saying so.
Those are the ones that are reporting it, that are saying so.
So if a parent is sending his or her child to the Boy Scouts to learn to do duty to God and country and instill morality and decency, one had better check and first see who the Boy Scout leader is and to check some background, because the child may be in for some
well, a continuing theme here
trauma.
is that the kids go for years without reporting it.
Yeah.
Exactly, because the child, of course, usually in this situation, is going to be psychologically intimidated, frightened. It's very dangerous for
This
the
is
child.
also very close to the recent scandals with regard to daycare centers, too.
Oh, yes.
Because essentially, part of the Scout thing is kind of a babysitting service on one night a week or something for parents, too, because it's a place to send their kids, where they'll be with other kids and be out of their hair.
Exactly.
Too. But going on with some more of the general statistics, at least 1,151 Scouts, 1,151, have reported being abused by their leaders over the past 19 years, making sexual abuse more common in Scouting than accidental deaths and serious injuries. In that time, 19 years, at least 416 men have been arrested or banned from Scouting for molesting the boys in their care. One of the things we'll be getting to a little later is a listing of those 416 incidents, where we'll be kind of going down and just quoting every 5th or 6th one or 10th one or something to give you a flavor of it, an idea of what they have been banned for. Now, I think probably first I ought to try to give a little bit of background information so you'll know what we're talking about the Boy Scouts of America. The Boy Scouts of America were incorporated in 1910 in Washington, D.C., so they're 81 years old this year. by a William D. Boyce. And William D. Boyce was a publisher of the Chicago Saturday Blade and the Chicago Ledger, and he had them incorporated. Congress gave the Boy Scouts a federal charter in 1916, which prevented other groups from using the Boy Scouts of America name. They got a federal charter. Then, meanwhile, about the same time over in England, Lord Robert Baden-Powell started a scouting movement in England in 1908, and he came over and visited the United States to help the organization and incorporation here. And we'll have more to say about him later, too.
Yes, the founding,
now,
the founder of it.
The Scouts are divided into essentially, now this is just the boys, not the girls, are divided into essentially three areas, three kinds of Scouts. And they start with the Cub Scouts.
Oh,
For the
that's
Cub
a good age
Scouts,
to get them.
you must be at least 8 or have completed the first grade you must be at least 8 and can't be older than age 11 and must have completed the first grade. Cubs belong to what are called dens, and there are usually about 6 to 10 boys in each den. And the dens are part of what are called cub packs. The den leaders are usually women. Okay, so on that level, they have women. There are very few sexual abuse cases, of course, reported to the Boy Scouts from the Cub Scout level over the past 19 years.
That's because the kids are afraid to report.
At the end of 1989, there were, to give you an idea of the size, 52,978 packs of Cub Scouts on the Cub Scout level by the end of 1989. Then you have the Boy Scouts themselves. With the Boy Scouts, you must be at least 11. That is, when you reach age 11, you can graduate from the Cub Scouts to the Boy Scouts. And you have to have, or you have to have completed 5th grade. And the Boy Scouts run up through age 17. Boy Scouts belong to what are called troops. The troops' most frequent thing that they do is to go on camping trips, led thereby by what are called scoutmasters, who are usually men. The vast majority of the sexual abuse cases reported to the Boy Scouts over the past 19 years have involved this middle segment, the Boy Scouts. At the end of 1989, there were 46,830 troops of Boy Scouts. To give you an idea, it's a very big organization. Now there are a couple other types of Scouts. There are Tiger Cubs, who are ages 7 and 8, which are kind of a junior group, and Explorers, who can be between ages 14 to 21, and an Explorer can be either male or female.
Those are the ones that Ritter got.
And there are also very few sexual abuse cases within the Explorer class. Almost all of it is within the Boy Scouts of the three levels.
That's because at that last level they have learned to love it.
Okay,
Let's get to some of these cases.
Now,
it's too good to be true.
Each year, from 1971 through 1989, which is 18 years, an average of at least 21 male scout leaders and camp workers were banned from scouting or arrested for sexual misconduct with Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and Explorers. Those acts in general ranged from proposing sex and fondling boys in their sleep to performing oral sex and intercourse with them. So it was the whole kind of range. Now these are just the general overall findings. During that time, an average of at least, that 18 or 19 years, an average of at least 60 scouts were reported abused each year, with some of them abused dozens of times before they told anybody.
If they told
anybody.
Yes.
The scout officials tried to hide the sex abuse problem from the public and from the press, and sometimes from parents and police both. National Scout officials have given the news media incorrect information on a number of occasions about the extent of the abuse in scouting, and in a few cases the local Scouts officials may have violated or did violate state or county or city child abuse reporting laws by not reporting the suspected abuse to authorities as they're supposed to. Most of the abuse took place in, of course, camping trips. And was the most popular place for the scout leaders to get after the boys when they were out there in those little dark tents, those little pup tents.
Come on, let's get to the good part.
Over the past 5 years, the Boy Scouts of America and local scout councils have agreed to pay at least $15 million to settle lawsuits brought by families of abused scouts. So they've gone the route of settling out of court. The molesters often joined troops and molested boys even after being caught. At least 21 of the men had prior criminal records, mostly for sexual offenses with children. Others had left troops of youth groups under suspicion, but were not charged. Okay, all of these molesters came from all walks of life. They were priests, policemen, teachers, truck drivers, laborers, lawyers, anything that you can imagine. They weren't any particular group or kind of people.
They just had one thing in common: pedophilia.
That's right. The vast majority of abuse in scouting was committed by a small group of volunteers. That is, male scoutmasters and assistant scoutmasters, who number about 147,000. The victims are...
Only 147,000.
Now, that's a small group out of the large thing. The victims are usually from one group, Boy Scouts who range in age from 11 to 17, and there are 959,000 of them as of the end of 1990 that are in that kind of age range.
Don't take up the whole program with all of that stuff. Let's get to the
all
good
of
stuff.
these, of these people, they had a variety of motives, a variety of styles. One of the most repeat offenders was a man in Illinois who would go in and massage the boys and feel them up and feel their buttocks and all of this kind of thing. And he had been a repeat sexual offender, and he was also very religious. He thought he was doing God's work by teaching them about sex.
Yeah.
And
that.
the pattern of his life is that he would go into a particular community, become a pillar thereof. He joined the Holy Name Society, become vice president of the local Little League. He'd become an award-winning teacher and a scout leader, and all of this, until he got caught fondling the boys, or the adults caught up with what he was doing, or the police found him out, and then he'd move out to a new community and then reestablish himself in another community.
I
And he
love
went
what
from one
happened,
little
though.
town to
In
the
order
other.
to, he got psychiatric care, and the psychiatrist thought if he got married, everything would be fine. So he got married, and the only way he could have sex with his wife was to fantasize that she was a young boy.
Right.
That's
Right. And he produced
Now,
3 children.
the Boy Scouts nationally do